And there came a day unlike. Wait, no, that's been done. Who knows what evil lurks in. No, that is that other thing. What has yellow skin and rights? Ah, forget it. You're listening to Panelology. Excelsi, oh, damn it.
Welcome to episode 235 of Panelology. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian.
How you doing this week?
I'm doing okay. Yeah. Pretty good week.
Yeah?
Yeah, and the end of October, all fun times, good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was quiet here, which I am fine with.
Yeah.
Mostly spent the week trying not to think about the thing that I think everyone's trying not to think about right now.
Yes.
And failing miserably at that.
Yeah, I think I heard a great description of, it's a lot like going in for a medical test and just waiting for the results at this point.
This is, I think, a generational thing.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, in high school, people would walk up to you and say, "You just lost the game." And the entire game was, if you think about the game or someone mentions the game, you lose the game. Like, It was just this weird,
like
almost
meta
Dada art experiment that
Yeah.
became viral. Incidentally, everyone listening just lost the game. But I feel like trying not to think about the thing we're all trying not to think about is basically just that same energy as you think about the game and you lose the game.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Which makes it even worse that this is going to be a solicitations episode because it feels like tempting fate to talk about anything that far in the future.
Yeah, not to mention, what an interesting solicitation.
Yes, but we will get there.
We will.
This is going to be, listeners at home or in cars or wherever you might be, kind of a weird episode. We sat down to do show notes and we're like, there are some things to say about everything here, but not a whole lot. Actually, do we have a lot to say about? So we're going to say a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
And we're going to start with probably the two things we have the most to say about, maybe. Dark Knight's Death Metal Rise of the New Gods first, and then we'll talk Ten of Swords. So,
right.
Rise of the New God, number 1.
This was one of the one-shots that's tying in with Dark Knight's Death Metal. And this is essentially the introduction of what is very definitely going to be a ongoing central character, don't you think?
Maybe. Like, he comes in with big Nick Fury the Unseen energy, frankly.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, and by the way, let me just say, okay, so he
the Omniverse thing?
Yeah, he's the chronicler of the Source, right?
Yeah.
The chronicler of that is an agent of the Source or whatever. He has got some super strong, like his aesthetic, he's got some super strong Black Hammer going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. See, with that head, with that face and head. Yeah.
I thought you were going to mention that he answered a question we brought up last week, which is, what is the difference between the Omniverse and the Multiverse?
Yeah.
And it does just seem to be that, you have a universe that inhabits a multiverse, and you have a multiverse of universes, and your multiverse is one of many in the Omniverse.
The other thing that this one talks about as it goes, so he goes around visiting. The premise of this is, the Darkest Knight, who is the Batman Who Laughs, who has now inherited Dr. Manhattan's powers, and all the powers of Metron's chair, the Mobius chair. He basically is now of the same power level as Perpetua, and the two of them start fighting.
Yeah, I really expected this issue to be just that fight, and it's not. It's like a conversation between the Chronicler and who does he go to
Various.
before Metron?
What's that?
Who does he go to before Metron?
Psycho Pirate.
Yeah, between him and Psycho Pirate, and then him and Metron, with just like these two giants fighting in the sky.
Yeah, so yeah, like their fight is just the background of this.
Which I think I like better.
Then he also fights Vril Dox, son of Brainiac.
Right.
Yeah, or not fights, but talks to, rather.
Yeah.
Yes. So each of these that he visits, they are all people who have either gathered like massive amounts of information about the current multiverse, or in the case of Psycho Pirate, even like remembers all of the history, even through the crises, right?
Right.
Like the pre-crisis history and everything. So he goes. So the idea is that this battle between Perpetua and the Darkest Knight is going to end this multiverse, and so he is showing up to chronicle and gather all of the history of it so that it can be preserved in the Omniverse somewhere.
Yeah. And like any true Marvel watcher, he becomes enamored of the multiverse and decides that he must help save it.
Yeah, so he goes to Psycho Pirate first, then he goes to Vril Dox and gets this. And then the last person, he actually goes and finds Metron's skull on the, I think it's the moon.
Alas, poor Metron, I hardly knew ye.
And resurrects him. Because, Metron is the one who, essentially in the DC universe, Metron was the most like a watcher of anybody else, right? So he talks to him, and Metron basically says, yeah, I watched for so long without becoming involved, but the nature of this multiverse is such that it makes you want to be involved and participate in it. And he looks at the Chronicler and says, it's having the same effect on you, isn't it? And the Chronicler's like, yeah, it is. And he was like, so the fact that it's doing that means that I know no matter what happens, even if this multiverse doesn't survive this, it will. Like, it can't die as long as it has this infectious idea of making you want to be part of it and making you want to help it continue existing.
Right.
Yeah. That was kind of cool. That was kind of the other thing that I very, very much took a notion to in this is when it's talking about the source, and more specifically about the creativity and the creation behind the source, or that is the source, or however they're referring to it, right?
Yeah.
Super, super, super same energy and vibes and belief of Marvel's ultimate source in the Marvel universe, right?
Yeah.
Which is Marvel, the comics publisher, right? The creators and writers and all of that is Marvel Publishing, right?
Yeah.
It gave me very, very much that same vibe that the source in the DC universe is the writers and creators and that are DC Comics.
So does that mean that Animal Man has traveled outside of the source?
Good question. Maybe. Like that's happened a lot in DC Comics, by the way, where characters have gone out and met their creators.
True. Yeah.
So, but it makes me question if this whole idea of, right, the source of the Omniverse, right, is, I said it's Marvel for Marvel and DC, but maybe it's just period comic writers, creators, artists, it is creators, and therefore the source for Marvel and the source for DC are now the same source.
Which makes sense. Sometimes they're even the same creators.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But my point being, this idea of in this Omniverse thing, right? Now they truly can coexist in the Omniverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was rather fascinating. And then it ends very much with the Chronicler saying that, yeah, he believes in this multiverse and wants to do something to save it. And then we get a to be continued.
Comic book metaphysics.
Oof. Then we actually get a backup story in this.
That's right. This one did have a backup.
Yeah, which is John Stewart talking about what leadership is and how the dreaded question that all leaders eventually get, which is what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, essentially for this definitely picks off right at Multiverse's end, right, where they're basically in a ship trapped in the bleed with these refugees from all of these other worlds and trying to get back to Earth Zero, and they only kind of succeed in that what they come back to is obviously the darkest night, the death metal Earth,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm not sure exactly what this last page of this one means because we have all of these heroes from across the multiverse, like one or two from each Earth, and he's basically holding up a Green Lantern ring, kind of offering it to them and saying, "Yeah, so what are you going to do?"
So there is a precedent. This in fact happened in 2011's Green Lantern #1, which was the New 52 Jeff Johns written Green Lantern series. And like the Batman stuff, Jeff Johns had been writing Green Lantern, was allowed to continue basically where he had left off in Green Lantern. And where he had left off was that Hal had had his ring taken away. In Green Lantern #1, Sinestro, who had been given a Green Lantern ring again, comes to Hal and uses his ring to make a second ring and offers Hal, you can join, but you have to you can come back and have the ring again, but it's off the radar and you are basically my sidekick and have to do what I say.
Got it.
So there is precedent for using a ring to make like a temporary ring that is subservient to the ring that makes it.
Well, and Hal's ring that he owns right now was created purely from his own will, correct?
I think that's right. I was
think it is
not
too.
reading that book when that happened.
Yeah, I wasn't either, but I know it's been referenced in other places, and I'm pretty sure that's right. And it's like something that's unprecedented and has never been done in the Lantern Corps before. And
Yeah.
whatever. But super interesting. I love, and of course, I love some of the characters that are in this multiversal refugee group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just looking forward to seeing Green Lantern Captain Carrot.
I mean, there is Captain Carrot. There's also Batwoman from Bombshells.
That's
in
right.
Here.
Yeah.
It was like, what? Yeah. There's the Vampire Batman from the Vampire World. There's Hawk Girl Wonder Woman. I don't know how else to describe her. Yeah, there's some interesting characters in this.
Yeah. Let them all get power rings.
I don't know. Who knows? But that's that's our backup story for this.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. This was a good book. It was very different than what I expected, but I still liked it.
Same.
But I like all the death metal stuff.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I am digging death metal. I think that you sound a little more into it than I am. I'm feeling a little bit of the weight of all the one shots, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
And I'll say the only thing that's making the one shots palatable to me is they're not releasing other tie-ins or like other main issue stories the same weeks that they do the one shots.
Yeah.
Like they are letting them stand on their own for those weeks.
Yes, that does help.
Yeah, it does.
I think for me, it's just we went like half of the miniseries without any tie-ins or one-shots.
Yeah.
And now they're all in the back half, so it feels like, even though it's the same amount of time on the calendar for the most part, it kind of feels like there's more between me and the next big plot point.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think I think there's a combination of things that do that. Part of it was the whole comics delay thing, and part of it was just the fact that this was so successful and so many creators wanted to get involved that they expanded. Right?
And don't get me wrong, I am all for more. I am digging these comics. I just, the pacing has become something that I have to steel myself for a little bit.
Fair enough.
Okay, our other big event book this week, Ten of Swords Stasis #1.
Which I will again credit to Marvel this time for allowing this as a big, one shot issue to stand on its own this week. They didn't have other X books out this week.
Yeah, which I think is really smart. Like,
I think it's especially given what this issue was.
yes.
So the last 5 X books that we've read in the Ten of Swords thing have essentially been building, the heroes getting their swords and then showing up at this sigil.
I mean, I'd say more than that. I'd say basically the last 8 of the last 9 have been that.
Whatever it has been, right?
Yeah.
So this large number of whatever they are. This one essentially gives us who are the 10 heroes on the other side.
Yes.
From Arakko. And we find out what their prophecy was for each of them, who they are, what their sword is, kind of the whole thing, but it's all in this one summarized issue.
Hey, can I make a weird called shot?
Yep.
I don't think that Pog or Pog is the giant crocodile man.
Okay.
I think that Pog or Pog is the sword and whoever holds it is possessed by it.
That's certainly possible. By the way, you notice that it is very, very much looks a whole lot like
Darkseid's, or not Darkseid's, jeez. Apocalypse's?
Yes, Apocalypse's sword.
Frankly, yes. I'm shocked it took me that long to do that.
Yes.
I did notice that, but I also noticed that in all of the... So we basically get a page to 2 pages of the recruiting the sword bearers for Arakko, or sword breakers, I think they're called collectively.
Yeah.
Of Arakko. And in all of them, it's the name of the sword breaker, the name of the sword in a caption box.
Right.
Pog or Pog was just listed as Pog or Pog.
Right. Like the sword and the creature are the same thing.
I think it's a sentient sword that possesses whoever holds it.
That very, very much would fit. The other thing that we get in this, and this is, I don't want to say, I guess it's an equal part of this, is we get this conclave of the lands in Otherworld.
Yes. We've kind of had a slow build up to this.
We did. So we had been given basically like a text page, an info page on each of these different realms that are part of Otherworld. Here we have this conclave where Saturnine has called them all together, which apparently is something that happens fairly often. And in some cases, there's some dispute about what the land is, or who is representing the land, or
they're basically,
who has conquered it now, or...
They're basically in the middle of a vote for a zoning ordinance.
Yes. That is a very apt description. So, and specifically, the biggest one is, let's see, who is it? Mercator, right?
Yeah.
So Mercator is the one that, there's 2 representatives that show up for Mercator, but they never say anything. They never vote. They never whatever. And, our info page for Mercator is essentially almost blank, because it essentially tells us that once this showed up and they renamed themselves Mercator, nobody has been allowed in, and the borders have been closed and sealed.
Yep.
And Sheriff Gia Whitechapel of Whitespoke.
Incidentally, this character needs her own ongoing?
She definitely, or at the very least, a miniseries.
Nope,
yes.
Full ongoing.
Okay, called shot. Go for it. I love it. Yeah, she is wonderful. She has super, super Elsa Bloodstone vibes going for me.
Yep.
Yeah. She's essentially said, yeah. So they vote as to whether or not they should require that Mercator open its borders, and essentially the nays win, right? And Sheriff Gia's response is, yeah, but we ain't interested in a vote. Places like this Mercator can't lock us out forever. My posse and I'll go in there and look around, permission or not. Yeah.
Yes. Again, need so much more of this character.
Yeah, very, very much. Yeah, and then they get into probably the discussion that is more relevant, which is Dryador, which is the place that touches Araco,
Yes,
right?
the
Much
slice of the pie opposite
Avalon.
Avalon.
Yeah, which much like Avalon touches Krakoa, Dryador was what touched Araco.
Yes.
Well, and so they have essentially said, no, we didn't come in and kill the rulers of Dryador and take it over. We killed Dryador itself. Like that land is now dead. It belongs to Araco.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, you can just start calling it Araco.
It is
It's
no
like,
longer territory of Otherworld.
correct. It now belongs to Amaneth. Yeah, which is the world, much like Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the setup, and our heroes arrive on Otherworld as well.
Yes, and they are greeted with tarot cards in their beds.
They are, and let's talk about these tarot cards for a moment.
Before we do, we're still only at 9 sword bearers, right?
We are. I do happen to know who the other one is,
Oh?
but I will not say on air because clearly they're keeping that for a reason.
Let me ask you a question.
I do not think you'll guess who it is, but yeah.
There is a variant for this issue that has a character who is not a sword, or who is, let me phrase this a little more clearly. There are several variants for this issue, all of which feature sword bearers. There is one, and are group shots, but there is one that is a group shot that has an additional character who is not a sword bearer so far.
I'm betting this very well may be the person. Oh no, I think I know who you're talking about, and I don't think it's them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can tell me off air then.
Okay, we can discuss that later. I will say that there is a hint as to who this might be in the ideas of the swords that we know. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
There's your hint.
I do have a guess, because there is one pretty high-profile sword that hasn't shown up, but
Okay.
it's also, as far as I know, like, in Russian hands right now and not on Krakoa.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it off air.
Okay.
Okay, but these tarot cards, I love that we get an explanation from Saturnine about when she pulled these.
Yeah.
Right, what they meant to, how she read them. Because so Betsy gets the 9 of Swords, which Saturnine describes as like flat out. There's no other way to read this. This is a really, really bad card.
Yeah. Wait, is that Saturnine or Tarot? That's the data page, right?
Yeah.
That's the mutant Tarot explaining.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe so.
Because it's a callback to
Oh, right.
yeah.
Yep. So
the creation issue.
Yeah, so this card shows someone very much like Betsy being stabbed with 9 swords. Ouch.
Yeah.
We get Doug Ramsey and Warlock with the 2 of Cups, which, much as I predicted last week, basically interprets as somebody who seeks peace and resolution to conflict other than fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And reaches an accord, right? And it shows like him and somebody else drinking from cups together, right? We get Gorgon, who has a card that has no face.
Yeah.
It only has 2 backs. That's got to be the weirdest one.
That is such a strange moment, and I love, in addition to kind of these descriptions on a text page, we get, if it's not a 9-panel grid, it's kind of
6-panel grids.
Okay, we get a pair of 6-panel grids. It's basically each character finding and reacting to the card, and Gorgon's is just like throwing it away and like dismissing it as some kind of joke.
Yeah, he's like ridiculous and walking away from it. Yes. We get Captain Avalon with the Knight of Pinnacles, and basically it shows Brian riding a griffin, holding his sword aloft, and being super heroic. I love Ilyana. She's just laying on her bed, holding the card up, and goes, "Nice." And it shows her with her soul sword stabbed into the ground. It's the Page of Wands, by the way. Stabbed into the ground, and like this energy flaring up around her, just like being full badass. We get Cable
The Fool.
as the Fool standing on what I can only assume is the Sword space station.
Yeah,
Does that sound right?
that sounds right to me.
Okay. And we're told that the Fool doesn't mean that he is a fool, but that this card can represent the Fool's journey, as in
However,
growth and yeah.
he takes it as an insult.
Oh, absolutely, he does. Wolverine's is strength, and basically shows him being strangled by the summoner. Interesting. Storm's is death, which shows her on a horse leading an army of the dead.
Yeah.
And it talks about how it may not be like death itself, but like the death of something and transformation, right?
Yeah.
Through that, which immediately led me to think, is she going to, I mean, the obvious death, right? Is she going to die and then be reborn, not herself, but this mixture of new things from all, because we talked about last time how if you die on Otherworld right now, they can't bring you back the same. You're basically this potluck mixture of all possibilities.
The meta answer I have to that is the X-Men editor Jordan White has said that there are some big Storm stories coming in 2021.
Yeah.
So could be not. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, given what they've set up for this, that's an obvious question to ask, right? Yeah.
Well, there were also a lot of people who assumed that the character wearing the golden mask, who had been unidentified in solicitations,
yes,
might be Storm. And we find out in this issue who that is. It's exactly who I thought it would be.
It's exactly who I thought it was also, hands down. So the last card that we get is Apocalypse, and he is very pissed about his card and crushes it. And then storms off and actually finds Saturnine to ask her about it. Because we find out that the card that he got was the Lovers.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically the reason for that is we then have the unmasking of the gold-headed figure who is the leader of the Sword Breakers. And it is, of course, his wife.
Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think has been like really well set up. And if you have sat down and kind of pieced together the history of Arakko and Ameth and Okara that we've gotten, like everything to get us to that point, or to get us to this point, is already there in that storytelling.
Agree. The other question I have is about this was from earlier, which is the Mercado, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this also that other invasion force that forced the whole splitting of Apocalypse and his family, and right?
This feels more extraterrestrial than the demon things we saw coming, like just in the design.
Yeah.
Than the demon things we saw coming through the sword portal.
Right.
So if we're assuming that those are the forces of Ameth that split Okara, I probably lean toward no, that these are something else.
Right.
I do want to mention, though, one of the other groups that, until I saw one on the page, it did not click for me who they are. The Infuri.
Oh, yeah.
The Infuri were a figure in the Alish Kott Michael Walsh Secret Avengers run that I love so much.
Okay.
Yeah. There were like the series starts off with Nick Fury Jr. and Phil Coulson like investigating the space station that has gone dark, and it's gone dark because this one Infuri is like on the station and has killed off everyone. It's like, battle in space in a dead space station with this Infuri. That like goes on and becomes a recurring character in the series. So
Excellent.
yeah, like just by name, because they just called it the Fury. Like it was a dumb joke. You had Nick Fury and the Fury. It didn't
Right.
click until I actually saw one on the page what the hell they were talking about.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like basically, I think we are now 100% fully set up with everything, and we're ready for things to start happening now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we get what, 2 issues this coming week?
Yes, we get X-Men 14 and Marauders 14
Cool.
this week, which are chapters 12 and 13.
Yes, this is the exact midpoint of the event.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this can be good stuff.
Yep. All right. Everything else now.
Everything else, yeah, those were the 2 big ones to talk about this week, definitely.
Yeah. Tell me about An Unkindness of Ravens.
Yeah, this is the book that I mentioned that was about a new girl who went to a school, and there are kind of 2 sides, right? There's kind of the mean girls and this group called the Ravens, who we find out are witches. And this is just more of her acclimatizing and meeting a couple of more new characters, as this is a new series, and starting to realize that regardless of how much she just wants to blend, like, probably not going to happen. And there's some weird things, and we find out there's some weird things going on with her dad, too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wind number 5 was out this week. This is the last issue of the first book of Wind. And we get some really good character growth in this issue. And you could kind of read this and call it I think you get a satisfying conclusion to this chapter. It is very much an act break, but like as a whole, I think it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, while also being the beginning of something else. I don't want to spoil the big change that happens in this issue, though. I will say that the prince finally becomes a less unbearable human being.
Oh, good.
And I can never remember big goofy gardener Hufflepuff boy.
I love that description, though.
And that's boy with an I. But he just is the absolute best person.
Yeah, the prince's childhood friend, shall we say. Yeah.
And after the last page, we learn Wind will return in Book 2, The Secret of the Wings, in May 2021.
Oh, excellent. Okay,
so
we got about a 5-month break here.
Yeah, not as long a wait as I maybe expected from the last I'd heard about it.
Well, part of that was probably due to all of the delays, right? Like, because this did start coming out about May of last year.
Yeah, I think I read in Tynan's newsletter that they were considering this a like fall event, and I think I read that as the beginning of the arc. I think that's probably going to be when the collection comes out.
That would make sense, yeah. So if we start in May, then we're looking at an October trade.
Yep.
Right? Yep.
Colonel Weird Cosmagog number 1.
So this is the next in a group of limited series about that kind of digs into each character in Black Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And super clearly, right, this is Colonel Weird. And much like you would expect with Colonel Weird, it does not follow a direct timeline. He jumps around, and he is old, and he is a boy in part of it, and he is in lots of different physical locations, and it jumps all over the place, but is still a very, very good understanding of, like, I think it probably does better even than in Black Hammer itself, of how he kind of experiences all of this.
Yeah.
And what these jumps are like for him.
I feel like, of what I've read, the closest we've gotten to something like that was actually in the Black Hammer Justice League crossover.
Yeah, that would make sense, yeah. Yeah. But essentially he gets to a point where he is like, so, yeah, I'm forgetting this, and I can no longer see the pattern like I have before. but so what do I do? And, his young boy self says, well, if you've lost something, mom always says the best way is to retrace your steps. So he's going to kind of go back to the beginning and start stepping through his life to remember all of these things. And I think
Cool.
that's where this series is going to go.
I cannot think of another series in recent memory that the covers have made me so excited for.
I will tell you the interior art is at least equally as good, if not better.
Awesome.
It is some of the best art I have, certainly the best art this week, in my opinion. And by the way, so the art and letters are Tyler Crook.
Oh, awesome. I love Tyler Crook.
And it is beautiful. It really is beautiful.
I need to read more Black Hammer. I have realized that the spin-off series that are not just like in title directly related to what's going on in the main book tend to be where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll get back to it now. I'll read 1945 or whatever. But then when these series come out that are the main series characters, I'm like, oh no, I need to catch up and deep dive into this now. Like this and Barbalian both.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like super, super, super good.
Action Comics 1026. This is the fight between the House of Kent, as it is referred to, and Parasite.
And Red Cloud.
And Red Cloud.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mama Leone, not Mama Leone. Mama Leone, is that her name?
It is Leone, but it's not Mama Leone.
I think I am mixing her name up with the name of a character on iZombie, which I've been rewatching.
Or Mama Leone's, right, from New York, but which was a very famous Italian restaurant in New York.
She continues her insistence that Lois Lane is from another planet and besmirching her name, and I cannot, gun to my head, I could not tell you if I think that this is, like I said last time, a case of two of her, one from our Earth who is in earnest insisting on these things, and then the one from Earth 3.
Right.
Or if this is the one from Earth 3 just trying to pull a con so convincingly.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Is she is from another Earth.
Lois is? I mean, Lois is from another Earth, that's
right.
true.
Because the Lois and Superman right now are not the New 52 Lois and Superman. They are the ones who survived from pre-Last Crisis.
Flashpoint, post-Crisis, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That is true.
So, I mean, there's that side. But then obviously the irony is, from what we know, not guessing at doppelgangers or multiple, is that she is actually, we know she is from another Earth if it is the same one that is the head of the Invisible Mafia. Yeah.
Do you count as being from another Earth if your entire history and existence has been fused with the one from the Earth you've traveled to, though?
Man, my question would be, does it matter at that point?
Comic book metaphysics.
I mean, that's the whole that's the whole mutant thing in Marvel right now is, if you're reborn and all of your memories are put back in, are you the same person or not? I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Batman Superman number 13. Talk about just like a goofy, almost Silver Age side adventure story in the best possible way.
There's another book getting like that right now too, and we'll talk about that in a minute here.
Superman and Batman are trapped on the moon fighting robot versions of their rogues created by basically a brainiac AI that Batman tried to use to analyze and find weaknesses for all the rogues, who said, oh, well, the easiest way to find these weaknesses is to have you two fight them and analyze that data. And that AI changed a message from Batman back to Earth that said, hey, whatever you do, nobody come to the moon and make this situation worse. To tell Batwoman and Steel, hey, come to the moon. We need your help. Because Brainiac has gotten this off-brand Brainiac has gotten all of the data he needs to turn around and build a hybrid Batman Superman robot.
Okay.
It is so just like, there is no way on earth that this storyline has long-term consequence, so it can just be as goofy as it wants.
There you go.
Like Batman at one point gets the upper hand by tricking Brainiac into making the Joker, knowing the Joker will basically be chaos that Brainiac can't analyze, and uses it to program a bug into the system to let him escape and go find Superman.
Right.
Like, it's just good and goofy.
Okay.
Flash 754.
Yeah, here's the other one that's starting to feel a bit Silver Age after with this the last couple of issues of this. So we are now hang on, I want to go back. This one and the one before it are we've got a new creative team on this, and it is Kevin Shinnick writing and Will Conrad doing the art. And we very, very much, this very much feels to me like a, each issue is kind of its own, or maybe one or at most the story is a couple of issues and you move on.
Yeah.
Has a very 70s, early 80s kind of feel to it.
More
and this
episodic.
one particularly is Dr. Alchemy, but I don't dislike it. I like, I mean, it's written well. The story moves well, and it's exactly what you would expect from that kind of story.
Yeah, I'm very curious with this book as one example. Some of the books in DC's line that either are at stopping points in November, December, or I think like this book maybe have hit one and have someone coming in to tell these kind of one-offs for a few minutes.
Yep.
I'm very curious to see what the next big chapter is. So, like, when March rolls around,
right,
is this same creative team going to be building, or will someone else come in as a result of Death Metal and Future State and all of these things?
Exactly. Well, and that's the big thing is I think some of these that are like you were talking at this point, I'd really think in some ways they're just filling time a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is not
in that they don't want this big ongoing thing happening. If they're already in it, like Superman kind of is right now, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the ones that they can do it for, they're like, okay, let's get through these kind of three big event things that are going on, because we got Winter's End coming in December too, right?
Endless Winter, I think.
Endless Winter. I'm sorry. Yeah. Endless Winter coming in December. And like, let's get through those. And then, before we start something new.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to make clear, that's not to like dismiss any of these books or the work
not
people
at
are
all
doing on them. Like we just said, these fun, like obviously can't have a big impact stories.
Yeah.
Are actually a really nice breath of fresh air right now.
I would agree. I kind of like that they've taken this pacing for a couple of these. Yeah.
Injustice Year Zero, number 9.
God, this book is just so good.
The Joker is such an asshole.
God, he is, but like this is the best of him being that asshole though. Like, this is what his character should be like. Right?
I do not disagree.
Like if you want to know what a Joker should be like, it's this.
I think the clearest, to me at least, the clearest signifier of this is kind of quintessentially the Joker, a character who, again, I have to say I'm so sick of in a broad sense, is the moment where he's taken control of Jay Garrick and he has Jay use the Speed Force, and it just results in this big bloody mess. And the Joker's like, shrug, I should have practiced.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care. He probably finds it amusing, but also, like, he is that kind of in-the-moment chaos unplanned thing that, yeah, of course he wouldn't have practiced.
Right. Like, you just do what you feel like doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. He's continuing to possess JSA members and using them to do bad things to other people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Justice League Dark number 27. I love this book so much. And 28, the next issue, is basically the end of this story that has been going since No Justice. Which again, like, makes sense. We've got Future State coming up, which we'll talk about, and then all of the No Justice stuff basically is getting wrapped up with Death Metal.
Death Metal, yep.
So this is just the big fight between Justice League Dark and the Upside Down Man, and it's got some big cool moments. It uses the story beats that have come up to this point to get to where it's at. Like, it builds on itself in ways that I find satisfying, at least. And it's a beautiful book. The art in this book I think this is one of the most gorgeous books DC has put out for the last couple of years consistently. Like, it's just great to look at.
Awesome.
Yeah. Also, Zatanna's having a bad day.
Oh, wow.
Legion of Superheroes number 10. You know how I joke about being irritated with you for not being caught up on the Immortal Hulk ever?
Uh-huh.
I'm actually that kind of irritated with you, almost. I'm like 40% serious instead of my usual 10.
Yeah.
About not being caught up on this book. If you weren't so far behind, I'd be irritated.
And I am very upset that I have not been able to find the time, and that's the problem, is I'm like 8 or 9 issues behind on this right now. So essentially, I've got to read a couple of trades to get caught up, and like it is, I would say, of the things that I am really behind on, it's the one that I want to read the most right now.
And like, really truly, of the things you are behind on, it's the one I think I would push you to read the most right now. I've said this before, I have very little working knowledge of Legion of Superheroes. This book really has been kind of the most consistently longest term I've read anything Legion of Superheroes. And the way it is building, if there is a book that Brian Bendis should be writing, it is this book. Like, I know I've said that for a long time, but this huge cast that I think for me as a reader at least, and I think for some writers, probably creates this barrier to telling stories that are easy to track.
Uh-huh.
Bendis is so good at juggling ridiculously large casts and working with a page or two for a character in an issue and nothing more. Like, the number of things that go on in this issue, and I'm gonna try to keep this as light on overall spoilers as possible, just to maybe tease you into reading this, Brian. We see one Legionnaire appointed ruler of their homeworld against their wishes.
Oh, great. That's always a great way to go. Yeah.
We see Jonathan Kent on a date. We learn that Oa, we spend some time on Oa with the Gold Lantern and the Guardians, who are now glowing, floating, fiery golden heads. And this is the opportunity that the Gold Lantern and Brainy take to ask about something that was teased in the last issue. I mean, more than teased. There is a great darkness coming.
Okay.
I think I maybe teased you with this a little bit, Brian. The like 2-word phrase that, even knowing nothing about the Legion, I know is a big fucking deal.
Uh-huh.
It's that phrase, Great Darkness, as in the Great Darkness saga. A Great Darkness is coming, and the Guardians had not warned the Gold Lantern because they're not sure if the Legion stops it or causes it.
Okay.
And then we see the future of New Krypton that has been teased in Bendis' Superman in Action runs, in which we meet Mon-El's grandfather, Zod, who is a ruler of New Krypton, like, peacefully.
All right.
Yeah, like, there is a lot going on here, and I am very into all of it. And, like, each of these things just gets 2, 3, maybe 4 pages. Go read it. The end. Suicide Squad, number 10.
Yeah, so this is the aftermath of Deadshot being killed by Black Mask,
Yeah.
and I gotta say this is the book that gave me a bit of a heart attack this week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wink and Airy.
Huh?
Wink and Airy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically the page where uh Wink gets shot,
Yeah.
and I was like, you did not just do this to Wink, right?
You know, I am at the point with Tom Taylor where I got to that page and I just thought to myself, nah, I trust him to be better than that.
Oh, oh. I was
There-
like, because of all of these new characters that they've introduced with the Suicide Squad, Wink is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and then we went on from there to start dealing with the aftermath, and I loved it. And the other thing that I absolutely loved was Harley and Zebra Man.
Harley and Zebra Man were so good. Zebra Man I expected to be your quote of the week this week.
I mean, I didn't specifically pick a quote of the week this week, but it absolutely would be. Yeah.
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 I'm also going to say this is probably my favorite use of Black Mask in any comic I've ever read.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
Right down to, oh, I didn't know the mask was melted to his face. Woof, bad day for Roman Sionis.
Totally like I didn't realize that. But she's not saying I wouldn't have done the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
More surprise than concern, if you will.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 765. Speaking of terrible billionaires.
Oh man. Max Lord is just like the worst good guy ever, isn't he?
He is as bad a good guy as everyone thinks Booster Gold is.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I somehow skipped 2 books. So,
and I'll be honest, I can't figure out if he's playing being this or if he really is this. You know what I mean?
I kind of get the vibe that this book is on sort of like a Greek like prophecy-based tragedy path.
Okay.
Where Diana and Lord are just going to kind of make the futures they want to avoid happen by trying so hard to avoid them.
Yes, that would absolutely fit.
Which makes sense, because, like, it's Wonder Woman, ancient Greek myth is a big thing, and, like,
sure.
This has Oedipus energy, right? Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Not in a anyone's going to go bang their mom kind of way, but in a like that only happened because Oedipus was trying to avoid it.
Right. Yeah. Everything that he did to avoid is what caused it to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of Booster Gold and the 2 books that I just realized I skipped, Batman Beyond number 48. This is the last arc of Batman Beyond. There are 2 more issues after this. And Booster Gold shows up right as Old Man Bruce begins attacking Terry out of nowhere. And tells Terry, hey, I need you to come to the past with me. Someone implanted a post-hypnotic trigger in Batman to attack you, and that's what you're in the middle of, and we need to go fix it. And Terry basically says, no, you are insane. I have no clue who you are, Booster Gold. Forget that. Tries to fight off Bruce. Matt gets killed. And Terry's like, okay, fine, I guess I have no choice but to go along with this to bring my brother back to life. Goes to the past, and then Batman assumes that he has caused the attack and starts attacking him in the past.
Wow.
Yeah. Batman versus Batman. Dawn of Batman. Batman 3 Jokers number 3. The art in this is very good.
Yes, it is. It is. Sitting in front of me awaiting my reading of.
Yeah. This I think makes a very strong case for these big event books taking your time, letting your artist have all the time they want or need to do the work and not rushing them.
Almost like they can do better work when you do that.
Yeah. Department of Truth number 2. Cole, after being recruited to the Department of Truth, realizes that this is his best chance to learn if there is any truth to the figure who has haunted him since his childhood and the Satanic Panic. A man with a big upside down star carved into his face. Like it's a really good introduction into like some of the inner workings of the Department of Truth itself. But also like I like that it adds in this layer of sort of personal connection to what's going on beyond just what we got in the first issue, where Cole was sort of recruited by these conspiracy theorists to come see the edge of the world because it's flat. This is a weird book to try to talk about. It sounds like talking about a bad dream, but it is such a clever book. It's James Tynion. Like,
Okay.
duh. Nailbiter Returns, number 6. We see the origin of the Buckaroo Butcher brawl, and as it turns out, the entire game was created by Crane and the Nailbiter, Warren. By Crane and Warren when they were kids as a drinking game. A drinking game that has gone too far. Sex Criminals, number 69. This is the last issue. It jumps forward 3 years and change. And the entire epilogue is framed as the wedding of these two characters that have basically been stand-ins for Chip and Matt. These two, like, vaudeville stand-up comedian performer types. It's a really sweet last issue because it kind of feels like the two of them are writing a love letter to each other. I need to know, I have a feeling that the vows that the two exchange, I'm willing to bet Chip wrote one of them and Matt wrote the other.
That's beautiful.
The whole thing is just kind of, one, metaphor for artistically trying to end something that has been a big part of your life. And two, like, just the way relationships kind of end and fall out. And it doesn't have to be a big deal, but it can still be important. Because John and Susie are also still the main characters of this book. The Amazing Spider-Man, number 51.
Yes. So,
you got caught up on this book this week.
I did get caught up on Spider-Man. Yes, I did. Just in time, I think.
How do you feel about that Kindred reveal?
Completely and totally unshocked.
Same, but
Yeah.
I felt like it built to that in a really satisfying way.
It did build to it very, yes, it is very earned. Yes. I loved and actually not so much in this one as in the I guess 50.lr, right? I think,
Yeah.
which was the one where Norman talks about who he can get to reach out to Kindred.
Yes.
Yeah, and like that was actually a bigger kind of reveal in a way, I think, than, I mean, after the reveal of who Kindred is,
Yeah.
then that totally makes sense, right?
Like, and I think the reason that moment feels like such a shock is because it is Norman Osborn having an idea that is so grounded in empathy. Like, who is the one person who Kindred has maybe still a connection to and would stop and listen to? Like, Norman Osborn has that thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Black Cat is back.
She is. And Spidey goes to visit Doctor Strange, and they kind of work together. They try to work together.
Immortal Hulk number 39. Guess what, Brian?
What?
I forgot to pick this up this week, so I also haven't read it.
Dun dun dun.
I have foiled your plot to stay one issue behind at all times.
Curses.
Yeah, this and Chew number 4. Chew number 4, my shop got shorted on. So,
Gotcha.
do not read into the fact that I'm not talking about either. I just don't have them yet.
Fair enough.
Runaways number 32. God, I've missed this book. I've missed this book so much. I will also say this is like maybe the least that a long break could possibly have hurt a book. The last arc was about the Runaways going to live with and becoming sidekicks to this like sort of Silver Agey Doc Justice hero.
Yep.
Who really just had one big plan to betray them to make his brand relevant again. And there is so much distrust between them and so much distrust of themselves and their own judgment and the fact that they made the mistake of trusting an adult, which they should have known better than, and the ways that they've screwed up relationships with each other in the course of the Doc Justice thing. Like, all of that, having this long break kind of feels like it's had time to really simmer and percolate. At least as a reader, more so maybe even than the comic has had. This issue starts with Gert wanting to do the thing that seems the least Gert to anybody else on the team and go back to high school.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the central, like, thrust of this issue and this arc. Vic offers to help her falsify the records she needs to enroll. And then Gib decides that he also would like to go to the highest of schools.
The highest of schools.
Which I have to mention mostly because, one, there is a backup, and two, the cover to the next issue shows Gib playing football.
Oh, good lord.
And now I may be even less qualified to talk about football because it is so not my thing, but the idea of this teenage god trying to pretend to be human and play football just seems like a rich comedy vein. I am very here for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Also, like, there are some other, like, you know, you get a couple of panels of each character kind of uncomfortable back in their hideout doing their own thing. Molly is looking up information about Krakoa and maybe going to Krakoa.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So some big things maybe afoot here. At the very least, I would love to see her show up in some X books here and there, even if she does like a Franklin Richards and just visits. Shang-Chi number 2. As much as I liked the first issue, I like this one even more. Seeing Shang-Chi and Sister Hammer interact together is really, really great. And also the book then takes this sort of weird horror turn that I wasn't expecting. And I am really, really here for it. I strongly recommend this book. I think there's a second printing of the first issue out this week if you missed it the first time around. Spider-Man Noir number 5 wraps up the big fight with, you know, ancient gods like you do when you're Spider-Man. I also think that this specific Spider-Man may have the highest ratio of number of deaths to number of comics that he's been in.
Oh.
He dies and comes back a lot. Strange Academy number 4. One group of students plays tag through interdimensional doors that pop up around different places on Earth and Asgard and Weird World and wherever. While Kid Dormammu is very, very bad at library sciences. And most importantly, the best Doctor Strange related character ever created makes a cameo appearance.
And who is that?
I'll give you a hint. He smells something funny in the basement that he's never smelled before and drags Steven down to look at it. It's bats.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The ghost basset
Yes.
hound.
Yeah, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
He smelled a demon cat. The autumnal number 2. the first issue of this ended in this sort of like not rotting even, but this sort of like body horror, this like arboreal body horror. This issue takes sort of that idea and layers into it this almost like Pleasantville, Stepford Wives town where something is off and no one will talk about it vibe. I still don't know exactly what's going on here, but everyone's afraid of leaves. And I am just absolutely fascinated by this book.
Okay, that's interesting.
I know, it's the weirdest description of a book I've given at least this episode, maybe. But it's such a good, like, slow burn horror read. Giga number 1. I wish you had gotten to read this one. I know it was on your short list for this.
It is.
Only because, if for no other reason than because this falls into, I think, a category of books that I'm not the best at talking about, that are high concept sci-fi books where the world building is very slow burn.
Oh. Okay.
And when I say slow burn, I don't mean that the book is slow at all.
Right.
The book is very character driven, and the world is drastically different in that like whole civilizations live inside these giant robot bodies that are there.
And they're not in a rush to give you this big info dump on who all these people are and what they do and
right, like the clearest example I can give is the first scene, sort of the prologue of this issue, is an existential conversation about how humans maybe be to these robots as bacteria are to humans, where you have, you know, your gut biome and whatever that
right.
that have a symbiotic relationship with you. And maybe humans are to these robots that kind of thing, where they get to live in them because they keep things oiled and repair things and whatever that the robots can't do themselves because they're at a completely different scale.
Yeah.
But then there are also like robots that are outside of society in the woods that are maybe just dead and maybe aren't. In fact, maybe the robots people live in are dead. We're really not sure. And there's also like human scale AI that might be illegal to exist and certainly is not allowed to be sentient. And there are just all these moving parts that are super interesting, but are not, I could not tell you the whys of any of it.
Okay.
Like, I think that's going to be, that's going to be at least the first arc of this book, is explaining the world as we see people moving through it. I think it's very well done. It's a gorgeous book. It's just, I think, the kind of thing I personally find it hard to find a way into talking about.
Fair enough.
Heavy number 2. This one is much easier to talk about. This, take The Punisher and add some sex criminal style cum demons, and you're basically halfway there. At the end of the last issue, the man responsible for the main character's family's death, including his own, is assigned as his partner, and this whole issue is kind of framed as the main character being like, look, I hate this dude, he ruined my life, but I also can't deny that he's just amazing at our job. It's like he was made for it. And as much as I wish I had never had to see him again, like, this may be the thing he is meant to be. Like, maybe this justifies his existence and everything else. But also I don't want to be here and watch him filling this New York street with blood and other bodily fluids.
Okay.
It's a weird book, but
clearly
I'm here for it, and I don't know what that says about me.
Okay.
Wasted Space, number 16. This book, I enjoy this book in general. This issue of this book is the most my shit this book has ever been. This issue is framed by like 2 pages on either side of the regular cast of this book being like, fuck, why are we always in the middle of everything? At which point it cuts to the origin of Legion, the smaller god who has tasked everyone with killing the bigger god.
Uh-huh.
The layouts in this issue remind me so much of Kenneth Rocafort's art. There's so much white space and irregular panel layout. This is a little more like symmetrical, just across the whole page, than I think Rocafort normally is. Almost like an Art Deco vibe, but it feels like an issue of a different book as it tells Legion's story, which is basically he was a member of this race that didn't really care about or maybe all have free will, but he did, and did not care for the existence of a god because why have suffering if you're a god? So one day God sends a messenger to them and is like, okay, well, I need someone to come visit me. And nobody wants to accept him. He's like, yeah, I'll come up there. I'll come up there and tell you what for. And he does. And his god is like, look, I don't actually have control over any of you. When I try, I make things worse. I do my best and put as much good into the world as I can, but I can only do so much. Like this very human way of looking at things. So he grabs him and rips him in half.
Well, there you go.
And then is cursed with his power and finds a planet that he tries to help because that's what he should do. And learns he can only do so much and that he really just makes things worse when he gets too involved. And it's this perpetuating cycle. It's an excellent issue. I love it. I think it's a great way for this book to come back from a long hiatus.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, January 2021 solicitations.
Yeah, we're into next year, folks.
Yeah.
Assuming that we survive it that long.
Ugh, I wish that were a joke. So this is going to be a little shorter than a normal solicitation segment.
Yes.
Because we're not going to talk at length about DC in this one. We'll start there to explain why we're not going to.
Yes.
In January and February, DC has an event going on called Future State. This spins out of Death Metal, and is basically a flash forward into the future of the DC universe, which is an idea that they've tried a handful of other times. I will say this about it right now. I am very excited for this iteration of it, when I have not always been about this idea in the past.
Yep.
I think the creative teams involved are super solid. I think
Yes.
the way that they are publishing it is very smart. And if you want to hear more about it, we're going to put out a separate, basically bonus episode this week. That is just the Future State solicitations, because there are 25 books and we want to talk about them all.
Yes. I will mention right here, though, there are a few books that are like mostly it's like the Black Label stuff, right?
Yeah, like American
Which are not
Vampire.
part of, right? Like the new Batman Catwoman, right?
Yeah.
And Dead Planet, I think, is that way. So
Yeah.
some of like the stuff that's kind of outside of main continuity anyway type stuff.
The other history of the DC universe, I think,
Right,
is
or
also...
Rorschach, something like that, right? So those continue. So those are not.
Yeah.
But literally everything else is part of this event.
Yep.
Right. So.
And that's
right.
That's all we're gonna say about it now.
Yep. That's it.
Aftershock, Scout's Honor #1. Brian, why could this possibly be on your list?
Gee, I can't imagine why I would be looking at this. No, this is a new series from Aftershock. The writer is David Papose, and the artist is Luca Casalanguida. The colorist is going to be Matt Mila. This is essentially a post-apocalyptic world where a new society rises up, and kind of all they had to base society on was this old scout manual.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Also, maybe a little terrifying, at least given the some of the additions of the Scout Manual that I personally had to use.
I was going to say, a lot of it depends on what Scout Manual they find.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, can maybe leave out that God and Country merit badge or
Yeah, well,
award.
So, but, I mean, obviously I find this, because I was involved in Scout, super interesting. Yeah.
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 Over at Ahoy, for me at least, the long-awaited return of The Wrong Earth. So we had a Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man miniseries this year that was sort of parallel stories for each of those characters set before The Wrong Earth. This continues from The Wrong Earth. They finally meet each other, and the question the solicitation poses is, will their impossible encounter result in a team-up or an all-out war? If you're not familiar with The Wrong Earth, it's basically like, imagine a series where Adam West Batman and Frank Miller Batman swapped Earths. That was the first one. This is what if they met each other. I am super excited. At Boom, another miniseries sequel that I am beyond excited for, Abbott 1973.
Yes.
Written by Saladin Ahmed, art by Sammy Cavella, same team as the first round of Abbott. Elena Abbott is working at a new paper, and working at a new paper, I think in a new city, maybe not. Nope, I made that up. Ignore that. The city is days away from the historic election of a black candidate as their new mayor, but a vicious new group has emerged to destroy him, targeting anyone who supports his campaign and the change he represents. And she has to figure out how she's connected to that and deal with her, like, accepting her powers as a Lightbringer to save her city. I cannot recommend the first Abbott series enough if you haven't read it.
All right.
Tell me about The Last Witch.
This is also a Boom book, written by Connor McCreary and illustrated by VV Glass. This essentially it is. I believe this is going to be an all ages book. The art is very animation-ish would be, I guess, the best way for me to describe it. Which I'm kind of super into right now.
Cool.
But it's described as people who are fans of Wind will like this, in that it is a story, kind of about a young person who is figuring something out about themselves that, like, obviously it's called The Last Witch, right? So she is the last witch and is learning what that means and how she can fit into a society where that isn't something that, people deal with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Moving on to Image. Haha, #1. Did you see this, Brian?
I saw it, and I actually asked Jen about it last night. She was like, "Hell no."
Yeah, I messaged her when I saw it announced, and she never responded. This is written by W. Maxwell Prince of Ice Cream Man, and it is another anthology series. A little more anthology than even Ice Cream Man is. The basic premise of this book is that it's all stories about clowns, and each issue will have a different artist and a different genre, so it's also not all horror. The first issue is drawn by Vanessa Del Rey, but they've also mentioned Gabriel Walta and Roger Landridge as artists on the series. Yeah, like, I don't know, at this point, tell me W. Maxwell Prince is writing something weird that changes with every issue, and I'm kind of there for it.
Yeah, a lot of this for me is going to depend on if I've managed to catch up by then.
Yeah. Over at Marvel, most of the new stuff coming out in January is related to King in Black.
Yes.
So in addition to the mini-series and tie-in series that were already announced in December, which we won't go back through. We add Gwynnum versus Carnage, 3-issue miniseries.
Which I am on for obvious reasons.
Yep. Shannon Maguire returns to write. So, as close to a continuation of the Ghost Spider series as we're going to get.
Yep.
Planet of the Symbiotes. That's a 3-issue miniseries. I don't know if I said that.
It is.
I think almost all of these are 3-issue miniseries.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right.
Planet of the Symbiotes is... I did the same thing I do with every event book where I look through and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to read this. Then I look down and see who the creative team is. Like, I'm not going to read all of them, right? I always tell myself I'm not going to grab every tie-in. So this is Clay McLeod Chapman and Frank Thierry writing. So, yeah, I'm going to get it. I don't know much about this book other than I imagine it does what it says on the tin. It's the Planet of Symbiotes. All the solicitation text offers is darkness reigns over the Marvel Universe. Same category of then I saw the creative team and had to have it.
Thunderbolts.
Yeah. Matthew Rosenberg writing, Juan Ferreira on art.
Yeah. I am really trying to stay out of the King in Black stuff. I mean, obviously I'm getting the Gwynnum thing because, it's Ghost Spider.
Yeah.
The Thunderbolts one I might have to pick up just because of Matthew Rosenberg.
Well, and remember, like, his first Marvel work, or his first, at least, Marvel miniseries was a Wilson Fisk book.
Yeah.
Wilson Fisk commissions this Thunderbolts team, which includes Taskmaster, Rhino, Star, Mr. Fear, and Batroc Zeleper, to save New York City.
Yeah.
Yep. There is a Black Knight one-shot written by Cy Spurrier, and Return of the Valkyries, which is a 4-issue miniseries.
Yep.
Written by Jason Aaron and Torun Grunbeck, the same team that wrote Valkyrie.
Right. Yeah. This is the continuation of the Jane Foster story. Yep.
Which is the return of Jane Foster and the introduction of a new Valkyrie, who is a black woman.
Wonder who that might be.
It's not. I don't think it does. I've seen the character designs, and I don't think it's just another riff on the Tessa Thompson Valkyrie.
I don't think it is, but I think it's definitely inspired by.
I think that's true.
Yes, I think that's what we're finding. Yes.
There are also some new crossovers that I will just list out real quick without getting into. Deadpool number 10, Daredevil number 26,
yep.
Guardians of the Galaxy number 10, Savage Avengers number 10, and Sword number 2. Also on Krakoa, Children of the Atom number 1. Finally,
I definitely put this one down.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about this one earlier this year or even late last year. It had been solicited and I think just got shuffled to be after Ten of Swords.
Yeah, it was. I think originally this was this was like February of this year was supposed to be out or something stupid and ridiculous.
Yeah. It was supposed to be much earlier this year.
Yes.
But it is Vita Ayala writing, Bernard Chang on art.
Yeah.
And it's... I actually just really love the first line of the solicitation, which is in all caps. When did the X-Men get sidekicks? Now.
Right. Now.
Yep. I've seen this cover so many times at this point because we had the solicitations before, and there have been all the articles about books Marvel hasn't resolicited, and this book because it's X-Men and hasn't shown back up, and like I look at these character designs and they're those kinds of almost mashups where I feel like there are 6 different ways right now with what's going on I could justify any of their existence. And I have no clue which one of those ways might actually be right. Knowing me, probably none of them. I really just can't wait for this book. Then we also have The Immortal Hulk Flatline, which is another Immortal Hulk one-shot written and drawn by Declan Shelvey.
Yeah.
Over at...
good stuff.
Yep. Last one is over at Oni. This is an original graphic novel, Secrets of Camp Whatever. This is written and drawn by Chris Grine, who we recently had on Minds at Yerk to talk about the Animorphs graphic novel, which he's also writing and drawing. The first one of those has come out and was really, really good, and he's a cool dude. So this is officially on my list. This is about an 11-year-old who doesn't want to go to her dad's weird old summer camp, but doesn't have a choice in it, and finds herself neck deep in a confounding mystery involving stolen snacks, suspected vampires, and missing campers, all shrouded in the sinister fog that hides a generation of secrets at camp, whatever it's called. I think it's all ages, but I might be wrong about that.
Yeah.
And with that, this week's books. Brian,
Yes, sir.
Young Justice number 20.
Yeah, this is the last issue of Young
Another
Justice.
turning point, a fork stuck in the road.
Yeah, last issue of this run of Young Justice, and I am sad but hopeful we will get some more stuff out of this after this.
Yeah, this is one of those books that I need to I wish we could just have March's solicitations right now too from DC.
Uh-huh.
Just so I can know what gets to come back.
Right, I'm with you.
Like for the same reason why I'm excited about Future State, I'm also terrified about
After.
yeah. Present state.
Yes.
Slightly more immediate Future State.
Yes. I mean, I know we're getting a Jenny Hex, but
Yep.
other than that, there's nothing else that we know of yet.
Crossover number 1. It's Donny Cates writing a super meta comic book about what if every idea that you had could be true, at which point reality kind of ceases to exist. I have seen like industry folks who have read this super excited for it on Twitter, plus it's Donny Cates. Like, that alone
Fair
is
enough.
enough reason. Wolverine, Black, White, and Blood, number 1. I can't not say that title that way. That's super dumb every time it comes out of my mouth. But I have to say, and Blood.
Yeah, we talked about this in solicitations. This is just, this is that super art style of Wolverine with essentially 3 colors, right?
Black, White, and Blood.
And blood or red, right? Yeah.
Red.
And yeah, it's kind of a bit of a concept book, and I want to see what it's about.
Yeah. Also at Marvel, Web of Venom, Empire's End one shot. I don't know what it is about all this Empire Fallout stuff, except I think just maybe Dan Slott and Al Ewing did that good a job turning it into a platform for new ideas. But everything that has come out so far that has been about bouncing off of that and building from it has been really interesting to me. In this case, there's a very clear through line. Like, this is sort of the big event handoff from Empire to Web of Venom.
Right.
But I'm also more excited for this Venom event than I can actually explain to past Alex, who would be very confused by my reading list in this 2020.
That is very, very fair, sir.
Yep. And that is it for this week. As a reminder, if you want to hear more about Future State, check out that episode. I don't know when it'll drop. I'll actually probably drop it as close to this episode as I can.
Yeah.
If you would rather just read those 25 book solicitations, you're welcome to do that. I won't really know either way.
If you even think you might be, it probably behooves you to check the solicitations for this. They're all over the place. DC's kind of preview catalog called DC Connect now, which is digital only. You can find it free in several places on the web.
Yeah. But like, part of the reason we're doing a whole episode on it is we are excited for it and want to talk about it. So maybe if you're looking for a reason to be excited, head on over, check out that episode.
Agreed.
As always, thanks to Chase Parker for our intro voiceover. You can visit our website at panelologypodcast.com. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/panelology. Send us letters or whatever at bit.ly/panelologymailbag, capital P, capital M, or get merch at bit.ly/panelologymerch, capital P, capital M. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian. Go read comics.